conversation. Have you ever felt that it was unsafe for you to be all of who you are inside of your life, inside of your relationship, maybe even inside of your leadership? We're going to have a conversation more specifically geared toward your relationship today. And I have found many of the accomplished spiritual and feminine women that I have worked with have often felt afraid to be fully themselves, have often felt unsafe even to be fully seen in their full, authentic selves, all of who they are. And what this does is it can cause you to show up in ways that are not fully authentic to you. And over time, this can start to create a disconnect in your relationship with your beloved. And it can break down the intimacy, the connection, the closeness, the togetherness that you really crave deep down inside of your heart and your soul. And when you are not fully inside of your body, feeling safe to be all of you, making sure that my microphone is here so that you can actually hear me. Live blooper, because I'm not editing this. So here we go. When you are in that space and you are not fully in your body and you don't fully feel safe to be all of you, you can show up in ways that are not authentic, and it can cause you to create this invisible barrier between you and your beloved. Now, what are some ways that you may be hiding, or what are some parts of yourself you may be hiding? Well, one I have found for accomplished spiritual women is they are hiding their freaky, sexual, sensual side from their beloved. And part of the reason could be your past religious upbringing. I've worked with women who had many different types of faith, and they had a really rigorous religious background that taught them that sex was bad, having sexual desires was bad, being a free woman in her sexuality was bad. And then they carry that inside of their relationships, their marriages, and they start to experience a lack of sexual intimacy, pleasure, fulfillment, even in the bedroom. Now, what I have found is they begin with blaming their beloved or feeling that there is some other reason, when really what it is they don't feel safe to be seen in that version of themselves. This version of themselves that is just fully free, fully relaxed. Nervous system is completely regulated and calm, feeling safe. There's no anxiety coming up. There's no tension in your body coming up. There is no fear around, what if I express that I would really desire my beloved to touch me this way, or to do this or do that in the bedroom. And instead what they do is they don't say anything. They censor themselves. They close up, tighten up their bodies. And so that deactivates the accessibility for you to actually experience more pleasure with your beloved. And over time, this does start to break down the intimacy and the connection with your relationship. Now, another one could be that you are a very deeply spiritual woman. You have a really close relationship with God. In fact, you are probably like myself, you're in close communion with Holy Spirit daily. However, maybe you're hiding this part of yourself from your beloved. Maybe you don't feel free to pray in front of them. Maybe you don't feel free to speak in your heavenly language, where they may be able to hear, even though you're in your prayer closet or in your sacred safe space and you're doing your own thing between you and God, but you don't want to be heard. And so maybe you find yourself caring more about if they hear you or see you more than about the moment of connection with Creator. And so you find yourself censoring this part of yourself. What this does, again, is it builds this invisible barrier where you are cutting off parts of yourself, you're hiding parts of yourself, and you are starting to create this wedge between you and your beloved. And you're not really shining your full light, your full essence, all of who you are in your relationship. Now, another one that I have seen is, say, for instance, you are this adventurous You love to go on adventures, and maybe one aspect or one revenue that you love to experience that is in travel. And you want to travel with your beloved. You want to go on experiences, excursions, adventures. You want to go to exotic places. You want to have new experiences, but maybe your beloved's a little bit more reserved. Maybe they're even a homebody. Maybe they don't like to travel in certain ways, and you find yourself feeling resentful about it. You find yourself wanting to shut down your desires and to deny your desires and to acquiesce into the way that your partner is presenting themselves right now. And over time, again, we're building that invisible barrier, that invisible wall between you and your beloved, and that will break down the connection and the intimacy, the closeness, the togetherness that you crave. So we want to look at, why do you do this? Because I believe when we understand the why and we have understanding, then it can start to build our faith of what's actually possible instead of living in the land of doubt, fear, worry, unbelief, resentment. Instead, we want to understand, well, let me get an understanding of why do I do this so that I can show up in my relationship with my beloved in a way that is harmonious, in a way that is in alignment, in a way that is congruent to what I'm desiring to co-create with them, which is closeness, togetherness, intimacy, right? So what we have to look at is, where are you not giving yourself full permission to be all of who you are? Can you notice when you start to cut off parts of yourself to be perceived a certain way, to avoid possible rejection? Could you notice where you tend to tell yourself stories and that inner dialogue is causing you to dim your light, shrink, and just continue to show up the way that you always have? Now, why do you do this? Well, it could be because in childhood, you experienced toxic shame, meaning your parent or your caretaker projected shame onto you, and that caused you to internalize a narrative inside of you, and your nervous system is capturing this visceral sensation, which turns into a memory in your body that I am bad, I am wrong, I'm not good enough, something is wrong with me. And this can create an identity issue here, even where you start to not feel safe to be all of who you are, whether if it's in your life, in your relationship, marriage, leadership. And you find yourself starting to try to fit in, trying to belong, trying to do what you think is necessary to get the outcome that you want, instead of just being your full self, fully, freely, truly, authentically, unapologetically, boldly. Now, one reason that you may find yourself still continuing in this perpetual self-sabotaging pattern, because it is a form of self-sabotage. And I know that's not easy to hear, but it's a form of self-sabotage because we are now recreating the past. We are bringing the past into the present when we are operating in ways that are congruent with a past version of ourselves. And so when we are dealing with toxic shame, it can cause this really deep unconscious fear of rejection. Maybe you felt rejected by your parent. Maybe you felt rejected by your caretaker. Maybe a teacher projected shame onto you and you felt rejected by your teacher. Somebody in authority projected something toward you that was a feeling of shame that caused you to feel bad about yourself because they're a position of authority. You're looking up to them, right? Naturally so, as children. We look up to those in authority, our parents, our teachers, our caregivers, and what have you, as people who are supposed to guide us, people who are supposed to mentor us, people who are supposed to take care of us, people who are supposed to help model ourselves as we are growing into adulthood. However, some of us didn't have that experience. Some of us came from families and homes where we had parents who may have been inside of their own traumas and dramas, and they didn't do their own inner growth work. And instead, what they did is they recreated the past. and they recreated the past, and it showed up in the way of how they parented you. Or maybe whoever the authority figure was, a teacher, they recreated their past and it showed up in the way that they were in leadership with you. And so it's not your fault that you had that experience. However, you do get to do something different about it. And so the path forward is alchemic action. Now, what is alchemic action? Alchemic action is where you move in the direction of your desires, where you allow your desires to disrupt your doubt. However, there's a nuance here. There's a caveat here. This is not about spiritually bypassing the very real internal experiences that you are having in your nervous system, in your self-image, in your perception. This is where you are able to be with what is happening inside of you, alchemize it, process it, regulate yourself, get yourself back centered and grounded, connected to your core, grounded in God, connected to who you really are, and then consciously choose who you prefer to be in that moment. And you may decide, you know what, it feels really scary to have a conversation with my beloved. I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of being laughed at. I'm afraid of being misunderstood. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to process it. I'm going to be with it. And I'm going to move into aligned action. I'm going to consciously choose who I prefer to be. And in that, what I get to do then is have the conversation with my beloved. And that's how you start to change things. That is the beauty of alchemic action. Now, why you may not be apt to engage in this process is because we get so used to validating our fears, our worries, our doubts, our unbeliefs in the midst of uncertainty. And when you find yourself in this place where you are validating your fears, worries, doubts, and unbeliefs more than you're validating the desires that you want to co-create, you can find yourself getting into a loop and a pattern that is creating more self-sabotage. And so this is where we have to pattern disrupt. One of my favorite things to do with those I work with is to disrupt that pattern. Because when we disrupt that pattern and we do the process that I use inside of my work, and we move you back toward the direction of where you desire to go in this instance and in this conversation, it's deeper connection, intimacy, closeness, togetherness with your beloved. It will blow your mind at what's possible and what you get to co-create when you really claim yourself, claim your power, and stand in it. Now, another reason is because you're allowing your doubt to have more power than your desires. And so I've been known to say to allow your desires to disrupt your doubt. When you allow your desires to disrupt your doubt, then you can take the next step, which is to decide to choose your desire. When you decide to choose your desire, that is what takes you into action so that you are co-creating what you desire. But if you only stop at the doubt is having more control than the desire, you're not going to experience what you desire at all. In fact, you're going to keep recreating the past. And if you stop at allowing the desire to disrupt your doubt, you'll be living in the land of fantasy thinking. And fantasy thinking is not co-creation. It's just being in wonderland inside of your imagination. And it's fun and it feels really exciting, but at some point you've got to make a decision. You've got to decide. And I once heard that to decide means to literally cut off all other options. And so when you decide something, you're saying, you know what, I'm unavailable for showing up in this way, for hiding parts of myself. I'm unavailable for not showing up in the fullness of who I am with my beloved in intimate ways. I'm unavailable for hiding that I have a really deep, powerful relationship with God and inviting my beloved into that relationship with God with me. I'm unavailable for denying my desire, for wanting to go on more adventures, to have more experiences, to go on more excursions. And I'm going to make the invitation to my beloved from my heart, not from my ego, not from a place of trying to control, trying to force, trying to manipulate, trying to make them do what I want them to do, but I'm going to invite them from my feminine essence. How does that feel? I love this because this is when we co-create miracles. This is when we experience everything we've ever wanted. This is when all the invisible barriers and walls and guards that we had up start to be dissolved and melt away. And all the illusions that we were seeing and the perceptions that we were seeing, we realized we were just seeing it through a lens that was based off the past. And that now we get to choose, and we get to consciously choose, who am I going to be in this moment? Who do I choose to be in this moment? And then move toward that. Now, when we are able to hold that type of knowing, conviction, certainty, power within ourselves, because we know how to be safe. You say, no matter what's happening outside of me, I know how to be safe within me. It doesn't matter if I'm rejected. It doesn't matter if I'm misunderstood. It doesn't even matter if I receive a no. If I receive an answer or response that was not really what I wanted to hear, I can still feel safe within me. And I can still move forward in an aligned way. That is when you are starting to recreate, or not recreate rather, but create what you actually want rather than recreating the past. This is when we're able to start to validate our own desires, no matter what. That is what I believe you were put on this planet to do. You were put on this planet to co-create heaven on earth in this lifetime. And you get to have those experiences inside of your life, inside of your relationships, and inside of your leadership. And so this is the work that I do with accomplished spiritual and feminine women. And if you are looking for support in this, reach out. I'd love to share ways that I can support you. If you are new here and you're desiring to just hang out here for a bit and learn more about me, then hit that button so that you can be kept abreast of when more of my videos will be uploaded. And if you know someone in your life who would find value in this, if you would share this, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for being here, and I'll chat with you next time. Take care now.